Morning, everybody. Troy. I am connected with day 5 of 5-day consciousness hacking challenge. I hope those that have been watching the replays are enjoying them. And yeah, like at the opportunity at the end of today is to reach out. I'm going to reach out to you all and invite you for a catch up to just explore and talk about and co-create based on what I've shared, what we're working on here at I'm Connected in the platform. And so here live with Michelle again and Steve. Steve just bounced out, but hey, Michelle, good to see you. So we'll start in the way that we always do, which is just connecting into the moment. Normally I would meditate before this call, but I had a coaching call, so I haven't yet. So I'm actually really looking forward to just dropping in. And so we'll start with an invitation to close down your eyes. And we're just going to connect to the moment. And just to honor what is arising in the moment. So tuning in to the emotion. You know, when I did this just before the call, and I was like, it's often, easy to more tune into the physical feelings. But what we do is we look underneath that. What's the emotion there? What's the energy? And so tuning in for me, what's alive in this moment? I would say it feels like happiness or joy. There's a sense of joy there. And so let's feel that. We meet that and we feel it. Just allow it to envelop us, regardless of whether we perceive it as good or bad. We just allow it to wash over us without going into a story around why it's there. And then, Michelle, for you in this moment, what are you feeling in this moment?
I'm feeling happiness as well.
And so we meet that, we feel that. Without trying to hold on to it or push against, we're just meeting the moment and feeling the energy that's arising in the moment. Feeling it consciously. And so in this moment, what I am feeling is, I'd say, joy. And so we feel that joy. We just allow it. And then in this moment, Michelle, for you, what are you feeling in this moment?
Feeling a sense of aliveness.
Hmm. Do we feel that aliveness? And by labeling it and calling it out, it allows us to really meet it and feel it. And in feeling it, really, we're just allowing it. Becoming aware of it, and then allowing it. And it brings that sense of aliveness. I too, in this moment, are feeling aliveness, vibrancy, like an energy. just bubbling up and through. In that moment, it just took my breath away. And so we feel that. The sense of my ears ringing, which is a quality that I notice when I'm really connected to the energy. Not in an annoying tinnitus way, but in a, wow, it's like the energy is vibrating around me and in me. And so then we connect to this moment. Michelle, what are you feeling in this moment?
Feeling open and connected.
So we feel that. Mhm. Yeah. Feels whole and general sense of well-being and yummy and just like, feels like, I felt like I wanted to say that I wanted to sing, but I think that represents itself as more like just wanting to express that energy through. And I feel like the more we spend time in that energy, there is that innate sense of wanting to express our magic. And I'm not a singer. So I won't put people through that. Maybe it's a calling for me to learn the skills to sing, but yeah, that's a part of it, right? There's more time we spend connected to the energy. We're all here for a reason. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. And so what society is conditioned to for us to understand what that reason is. And in fact, really, society hasn't really shown us the reason why we're here individually. And so why so many of us are um, struggling to find purpose and meaning. And I think I mentioned in an earlier session is that it's become my awareness that our purpose really is to honor the moment, meet the moment, however that is arising for us. And it'll guide us to where we need to be. And if we're in resistance to the moment, then when we're in resistance to our purpose. So how do you be in the present moment? It's a large part of what this whole 5 days has been about. How do we be more in the present moment? And then when we're in the present moment, we are more self, less contracted into a conditioned story. And so that forms the basis of what I want to share today and have a conversation around today is beliefs and habits. So doing a deep dive into that. So just sharing this, this is like an exponential curve. Within technology, they talk about how technology is evolving exponentially up a curve. And essentially it's like gains in productivity and technological advancement. See that, you know, the number of transistors within a computer chip was doubling every year, but that's kind of held true across technology. And so technology is evolving at an accelerated rate, up an exponential curve. And we're heading into an era of, you know, hyper acceleration with, you know, artificial intelligence and virtual worlds. Interesting to note that Samil Ismail from, who was the former CEO of Singularity University, talks about when things go exponential is largely when they become digitized. And he used photography as an example. Used to be back in the day with a camera. Probably Steve and Michelle, you'll probably be of a certain vintage that we can appreciate, having an actual camera and having to buy the film, and then you take the shot. You don't know if you got the shot, and if you're not a professional photographer, it could be weeks or months or even longer before you actually take those photos, get them developed to see if you actually even got the shot or what the photos were like. And then along comes digital photography, and we fast forward now in a relatively short period of time. We have these devices in our pocket. We can take we carry around thousands of images, and we can add filters, edit them. We can share them instantly through multiple different platforms, turn them into NFTs where we can actually generate income. His point is that innovation in photography started to truly go up this exponential curve when it was when we digitized, when it started to become digitized. And so that's going to continue to accelerate. We see, for me, my awareness is that it's not too dissimilar to the human experience, or not even the human experience, sorry, but life itself. And whatever you believe, and this is, I guess, part of a conversation around beliefs, but for me, my growing experience is realizing that there is, all within the all within the one. There is only the one, and there is no beginning, there is no end. And it's essentially what infinity is. I've been fortunate through some of the practices that I've done to have that experience of infinity. But then, in this current evolution of life, there was a big bang 13.8 billion years ago, according to science. And slow at first, the building blocks of the universe, and eventually, stars and galaxies, and then 4.5 billion years ago, which is like 8 billion year journey for the Earth to form. And then another billion years before single-celled organisms, and then another billion years before multi-celled organisms. But then the acceleration of life in different forms until 4 million years ago, our predecessors and Homo sapiens, we've only been in this form for 300,000 years. Homo sapiens have only been on the planet for 300,000 years. Modern civilization, 12,500 years. My point here is that we are progressing. Life is progressing up an exponential curve. And as we move into this era of, technology, technological advancements, we're starting to digitize the human experience as well. Like wearable devices, we're starting to capture our key biometrics. You've got companies like, most of the large tech companies are building virtual experience. Mark Zuckerberg investing $10 billion a year into the metaverse. And so we'll be creating our virtual experiences, avatars in virtual worlds. And so my point here is that as we start to digitize the human experience, innovation in how we experience ourselves is set to go exponential as well. Are we ready for that? Are we ready for that sort of level of hyper acceleration? And so for me, that's been one of the core driving motivations for I Am Connected, is really helping people to be ready to become exponential. And as the world changes, all we need to do is look at where AI is at, or it's sort of exploded onto the market over the last 6 months, even though it's been around prior to that in a B2B capacity, now more B2C, business to consumer. And like the race is on, so much so that they're asking for a 6-month pause across all companies so that we can set up effective protocols and just ensure that we're not taking humanity off a cliff. And so there's going to be so much change even in the roles that we play, how artificial intelligence makes some of the roles that we do redundant. It's like, if we've got our identity, if we're identified with our story, if we're identified with the role that we're playing, we're not connected to the energy that is becoming, then my awareness is that, people are going to suffer more and more and more. And so for me, this becomes really important work, is to really help us to reconnect to the sense of wholeness, because there was a point when we were all one, a singularity, unified point, an infinitesimal point that in fractions of a second exploded in the Big Bang. It defies physics. They call it a singularity. Partially for that reason, they can't necessarily see beyond the singularity. But we were all connected, is my point. And then we exploded into separation, and life's been evolving in separation since then. And so we are separate, but we are also whole. And so that's part of the journey, is really helping us to reconnect to that energy. Reconnect to that I am. I am. What is I am? I'm everything and I'm nothing. And to know ourselves and really feel that. And that's part of what that dropping in session is at the beginning, is like feeling the qualities of self, I am, of the observer. Without, doesn't mean to say that, the separation is not important. With relativity, relative to this human experience, it's very important. You can't just necessarily, not for the most of us anyway, sit in a cave and just be I am and be okay. So we need to learn to function. But the work that I'm committed to, and the work that we're doing at I Am Connect, is really helping people to really reconnect to that full sense of like, wow, I am already connected to the energy. I am already whole. And I am the separation. But I get to play with the separation and not have my identity just rooted in the separation. Because as we move into this period of becoming exponential, we'll suffer if we're in that separation more than we already have been as a species, creating conflict, creating war. And so these, just recapping, these are the 8 C's that Richard Schwartz talks about: the self, like the self, the I am, the observer. It's talked about in many spiritual texts, ancient texts. And so this is the map that I sort of put together. Being the I am, but also being the separation. Most people are just caught in the separation, which is a high beta brainwave state, where we have a very active mind that is conditioned, and it's able to be influenced. The mind is able to be influenced, conditioned, and influenced by outside sources. And we've already talked about, how sophisticated these algorithms are becoming at knowing us. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Lex. Sorry, I can't remember his last name, and Max Tegmark. He's one of the initial people that created OpenAI, and he wrote the initial letter just recently to ask for the pause, and got a number of industry leaders to sign it, thousands of industry leaders to sign it. Sorry, now I just lost my train of thought, what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, what he was saying about AI was there's a few things that we shouldn't do, but he's talking about in 2014. As we create AI, there's a few things that we shouldn't do. One is connected to the internet. Oops, we've done that. Another one is teach it how to manipulate humans. Oops, we've done that through social media and our algorithms. Another one was teach it to code. Oops, we've done that because then it can self-replicate and change its code base. And the fourth one was enable people to connect to using APIs and innovate off it using APIs. Oops, we're doing that. It's like, this is kind of like where he's like, hey, we need to pause what we're doing here. My point here is like, Facebook algorithms and our current system doesn't necessarily have our ultimate best well-being at heart. And so we need to be aware that the more time we're in this separation, in that high beta brainwave state, the more we are able to be manipulated in the most covert, and marketing has done that for decades, but it's becoming increasingly more sophisticated. So it's to know ourselves more as the wholeness. And then I imagine a world where we are all connected to the energy and feeling whole and complete and connected. And then as a species, then how will we relate to each other? How will we build technology? What technologies will we build? It feels like an enlightened age to live in. And for me, that's the flag that I'm putting in the ground and the utopian future that I envision and want to be part of creating. And so that's an invitation for those that are watching this and those that are on this call to, if that rings true for you as well. It's it's not a me thing, it's a we thing, it's like an everyone thing. But it starts with us, like doing our individual work to heal and feel the energy and know ourselves as not the conditioned story, but as a part of a whole, and a unique part of a whole that's here for a divine purpose to express that into the world. Yeah, and so we look at beliefs and habits. These are, I feel like, important. Our beliefs filter our reality. There's a great book by Donald Hoffman from the University of Irvine, California, called The Case Against Reality. And he says that we've evolved to for survival, not the truth, and we do not experience objective reality, and we can't see objective reality because we've had to evolve most of it out to survive. And so there's so much that we can't actually see because we haven't evolved to see it. And that's experience. We see that in our animals and how they've evolved in a different way and how they experience reality in a different way. And if you think about, I was going to say, if you think about infinity, like in the ways that that we could experience the world differently, we're experiencing this reality based on our conditioning. And so that conditioning, or we look at our beliefs, we talked about, like some of the limited beliefs that we have that are largely formed from contractions and triggers, like peak emotional experiences in our adolescence, but it's also our environment where we enter this reality, and it starts to be shaped from our caregivers and our environment. And so then that's how we experience this. Our beliefs filter our reality. But the thing is, like, our brain is neuroplastic. And Max Tegmark's book, Life 3.0, he talks about 3 different phases of life. Life 1.0 being, like bacteria, single-celled organisms, where your hardware and your software is fixed within a lifetime. And so they, what they're born, how they're born, they don't have a hope of changing it because their software is fixed, and so is their hardware. We are an example of Life 2.0, maybe 2.0.1, where our hardware is fundamentally fixed. We can augment it a little bit, but we can't actually change forms. But our software is neuroplastic. We can upgrade our software. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today, like how do we hack our software? And we have been talking about it to some extent, hack or update. Life 3.0 is where we can update our software and our hardware. And so there's some great series on Netflix that one's on Netflix. One's on Netflix. I think it's called Altered Carbon, where they consider this, it's a science fiction, but it's where technology is pointing us, if we choose it, I'm hoping that it's a choice, that we can stay human, but there's the potential to move beyond this human form. And I feel like it will be a choice. But yeah, altered carbon is like, we consider this a sleeve, and you've got your consciousness in a stack at the back. It's fun to watch. Another one is Bliss, not Bliss, Upload. I think that's on Prime. And essentially, yeah, that's post-human, where they're uploading people's consciousness into the cloud. And if there's any interest, there's Ray Kurzweil's like a thought leader in this space. He's hoping to, I think he's got his dad uploaded in some form. He's hoping to download him at some point. And he's like the chief engineer at Google. He wrote a book called How to Create a Mind. Wrote a book about the technological singularity that's coming. This here is a scan of brains under an fMRI scan, and it shows neuroplasticity. It was done by the research study at the Imperial College of London. And it's people under the influence of psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. The brain on the left is the placebo, and the brain on the right is those that are under the influence of psilocybin. What they're suggesting is it's actually a three-dimensional, so it looks two-dimensional, but it's actually three-dimensional, is that the psilocybin activates new neurological connections throughout the brain. There's the same amount of energy moving through the synapses, but this one on the left is just moving through the well-worn grooves, within the brain. So it's like, as we get older, we get more stuck in our ways, and it's because this is the neurons that fire together stay together. And so this is an example of just like being stuck, being stuck in your existing beliefs, being stuck in your existing habits, being stuck in your existing patterns. Whereas, under the influence of psilocybin, it creates potential for neuroplasticity. And this is, I guess, one of the reasons I know I support Mind Medicine Australia. And recently we're able to, I say we because it's a collective, but it's spearheaded by Peter Hunt and Tanya DeJohns, reschedule psilocybin and MDMA, psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression, MDMA for PTSD, from Schedule 9, which is illegal, to Schedule 8, which is still illegal, but legally able to be prescribed by a psychotherapist for treatment-resistant depression and PTSD, which is a milestone globally, now recognizing them as medicines, and the beginning of something really cool. And the research is supporting it. It's based on research. As an example of that, this slide, supporting it. Obviously, it needs to be done in a way that's safe, and so there's lots of complexity in that, but it's the beginning of something. When we talk about the RAS as well, when we look at beliefs and how our beliefs filter our reality, reticular activating system, it's a filter that sits in the brain. And so it controls the sleeping and waking attention. It's a filter, essentially. If filter that sits between our unconscious and our conscious, in that if we were aware of all the information that was being streamed through our senses, then, like for me as a highly sensitive person, already overwhelmed, would be even more overwhelmed. And so there's a filter, and it screens out what's not life-threatening, nor what we consider important to our survival. It allows us to perceive a threat. It's important, like life-threatening. It's like if you're walking down the street and you're in your zone and step off the curb and there's a car coming, it'll let that through into your awareness so that you can see it, so you can get out of the way. But if you're walking down the street and there's a sign on the wall that's not life-threatening, nor what you would consider like important in your reality, then often it can be screened out. The same person can walk down the street, and if it's considered important in their reality, they'll be able to see it. An example of this is like if you've ever gone to buy a car, and you haven't seen those cars around on the road before, and then the effort that you put into researching and buying the car, and then having the car, then you start seeing them on the road everywhere. And those cars were always already there. It's just now that your filter's letting them through. And this is where, algorithms like Facebook and selling advertising, positioning relevant material that they know that you're interested in into your feed can create, cognitive bias. It's like, because one person's feed is very distinct from another. It's like, so what I see the world as is completely different to what someone else sees the world as. And so in that, creates separation. And so it's just an awareness. Awareness around that the RAS works, though, means that we can hack it. And vision boards are a great example of that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how people have used vision boards throughout, in the personal development space. Technology is getting more sophisticated in that space. So these are just some of the other things that I've talked through. Any questions on anything I've chatted about? I've just got to be, I don't know, Michelle, see if you're on the call here. Keep rolling. Yep. All right. Sweet.
Keep rolling.
So what's that? Sorry.
I was saying keep rolling. Yep. That's awesome.
Sweet. So hacking our beliefs and habits, and this is just a few ways, like there's a number of different ones, but healing, we've been talking a lot about that. Healing is the key one for particularly like the negative beliefs about ourselves, the story, and really healing. What we're learning to do is in self, meet the parts of ourselves that have taken on roles that are feeling that they're not enough, that have learned at some point that the world and how they interact with the world is a certain way, but that's not true. Based on the future, that's based on what happened at that time, and at that time they weren't supported to be in self, and so we identify where they are and then we heal them. And so healing is a big part of hacking our beliefs about ourselves. And so we spent a couple of days going deep on that. Also, the I'm Connected platform, like, I'll just quickly jump into that. It's actually, I'll jump into here. The daily logs are a key part of that. Having objective data is a key part of that as well, like using the objective data to create a feedback loop so it can help break negative patterns. If you think you've slept you slept terribly, well then what is the data saying about that? Is that true? Well, then we can take action based on objective data, so that helps. But then also the daily log and filling this out, and part of this is seeing where our habits and our beliefs are incongruent with what our goal is. So when you set your goal, and then what actions are you going to take? What habits are you developing? And so in this, and particularly when we share it with a coach, we're able to see where we're incongruent with what it is that we say we want. And then if we're incongruent, well, then what's underlying that? Why is that? What are you believing about yourself, consciously or unconsciously, that we need to shift? And then contractions, but then also beliefs, like to be the person that you want to be, what do you need to believe about yourself? And so this can become somewhat aspirational, but then again, when you're sharing it with somebody else, we're able to support you in becoming that. And so the daily log becomes a really powerful tool for breaking beliefs, unsupported beliefs, and reestablishing new ones. setting intentions. The other thing it does is, particularly when you share it, like, so it's like a journal, but then you're sharing it with somebody. It's like an intentional journal. You're sharing with somebody that's expertly trained, that wants you to succeed as much as you do, but letting them on the inside. The big thing is that, and I've experienced this, having somebody there that cares about you, they can see your patterns. They can see how you're tripping yourself up, that often unconscious. And I've experienced like unconscious patterns around money. And then there's always a yeah, but I'm doing this because, and it's the yeah, but that is keeping us stuck. And so having somebody with love and compassion point out the pattern, and honestly, like a number of times when they've done that, it brings up this, like, if you inside, not that I would say that to them, it's that reaction. It's like, oh, so there is something there, right? That's pointing to the fact that there is something there. And so that's uncomfortable work. It's challenging, but if, we really want to be the full expression of our potential, then we need to have the courage to go into those places and at least lean in when somebody that you trust with love and compassion is pointing something out, so that we can heal it, so that you can have more space, so that you can have what it is that you want, because it's our existing code that is keeping us stuck where we are. And so, yeah, we're looking at, well, how do we break that? And so these are a couple of examples. This one's using the log. It's so powerful. Yeah, so I guess that's what I want to say about that. I guess what I want to say is, I also know how challenging it is. And that's why we're stuck where we are. We need people to help support us through that. If we could do it alone, we would have already done it. And so we need people around us that can support us, but the right people as well. Positive Prime's something, through my work with Transformative Technologies, they're an Australian-based company, and I fell in love with it as soon as I heard it and I signed up for it. It's like a vision board on steroids kind of thing, and it actually activates a whole range of different science. And they just did a study through the University of Technology in Sydney and validated what the platform does. And so it's like a vision board. If you think of a vision board, vision boards work because, starting to influence your RAS, and it by influencing the RAS, that filter that would normally screen out what wasn't important to you, it then allows the opportunities for that to show up in your world through your filter. And so with that in mind, what the Positive Prime does is, it's like a vision board, but I'm just going to quickly play it and then I'll explain it. This is just like an example of it. And so it's like, it doesn't quite go that fast. I've sped it up, but it goes fast. In 3 minutes, it plays at like 1,000 frames. And they're themed frames. So it could be themed on money, it could be themed on relationships, it could be themed on abundance, could be themed on, meeting your soulmate. And there's affirmations in there. And it's played quite quickly, as you can see. So unconsciously, it's going in, but consciously you can't really read it. So it's bypassing that conscious judgment, the conscious filter, and it's going in. The thing is also, you can upload your own images amongst the themed 1,000 frames. And so the images that you would normally put on a vision board are, like 20, 30 max, whereas here you can upload as many as you like. I encourage my people to upload 150. And so images are things that you would like to see show up in your rally. You upload them into your Positive Prime. So we call it personalizing the sessions. And so you personalize the session. So it's on money, for example. I'm a magnet for money. Prosperity is drawn to me. And so you upload it into your images. And for me, when watching it, I get a little dopamine hit every time I see my image flash through. But some of the science in this is that it puts you into a alpha theta state as well. So you may or may not know, but to influence the unconscious, we need to be in the right state. And this is linked to that emotion. And so by being in an alpha theta state, and priming you positively in the same way trauma happens, we're in a peak negative emotional state and it sticks us and becomes a program. Here, this puts us into an alpha theta state, but it's priming us into a positive prime. It puts us in a positive state. There's images with people that have like Duchenne smiles, and so mirror activates our mirror neurons in our brain, and so you see people smiling and you start smiling. The different imagery within there. What else? Yeah, so essentially puts you into a positive state, and it's then conditioning your unconscious, conditioning the RAS. And like I said, I get a dopamine hit every time I see my image pop up as well, which helps put me into a positive state. When I just check my time, I'll tell you a story. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story, but I used this as a when I first met Kim back in, I think, 2019, end of 2018. It's like, wow, this is so cool. I want to do it. So she set me up and uploaded my images. And this was when I was starting getting involved in transformative technologies. I was supporting Australia-based entrepreneurs. Kim was one of those. And I wanted to go to the national conference, the international conference in San Francisco, but I couldn't go at the end of 2018 because my son was graduating from uni and graduating from high school. And so it was on that same weekend. And I was like, I can't miss his graduation from school. And so I was watching online Jeffrey Martin, one of the founders of Transformative Tech, and Sanjay Manichunga, demonstrating a V-light, which is a photomodulated light stimulation in the brain. And I had it tuned to 40 hertz. And I'm like, wow, I so want to try that. That's an awesome piece of tech. And anyway, fast forward, I met Kim as part of Transformative Tech. I uploaded Sanjay's picture, Jeffrey's picture, Nicole's picture, who was the other co-founder of Transformative Tech, into Positive Prime, was watching it 3 minutes a day. And I ended up getting a grant from the federal government, a $100,000 package to go over to San Francisco for a month to spend time in the Transformative Technology Lab and then come back and run a series of workshops. I got over to San Francisco and it turns out their lab was this 9-bedroom mansion down in Redwood City. And they invited me to stay there for the month. And I walked into the house, and who was in the house but Sanjay Manichunga, Jeffrey Martin, and Nicole Bradford. They're all living in the house. And I got to spend a month with them, use that gamma stimulation device multiple times throughout the month. And it was just one of the most memorable months of my life. And when I walked into the house, and I'm like, Positive Prime, wow, this is awesome. So it's a really powerful piece of kit. And so like one of the ways that we can start hacking and conditioning our experience. Yeah. So just by way of review, like for me, like this is just going through what we've kind of been covering off. Establish a daily meditation practice. Why is it important? Because it builds a relationship with the mind so that we're not caught in it, so that we can be more of the self I am, that innate. And I've talked a lot about that. Establish sleep goals. It's important for optimizing our well-being and explore altered states, better health, physical and mental, and vitality. Like I say at the beginning in that session, it's like we can kid ourselves how well we're doing in the waking state, but when you close your eyes at night, it's where a lot of dysfunction shows up. And so if we're not sleeping well, it's pointing to something. Our dreams are a conduit to our unconscious as well. So by tracking our dreams creates insights. And then there's the opportunity to explore in lucid dreams, and also that hypnagogic state as we transition into sleep and out of sleep. there's a lot of insights in some of the world's most famous inventions, including the Google search, and people like whose name has just slipped my mind. One of the most famous inventors. He invented AC/DC, electricity. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Anyway, some of these insights, he used to use it and farm insights from there. Thomas Edison. Identify and heal unresolved emotional wounds is what we've been talking about. Heal from our conditioning. And our conditioning, obviously we're experiencing the world in the way that we are, but as technology continues to advance, the world's going to get increasingly more wild. Worlds within worlds as we move into the virtual spaces. This is important also to be more of that self, the I am. It also enables us to have better relationships. It's not you out there that's the problem. It's like what's happening out there is pointing back in here. And if we're feeling anything undesirable, it's pointing to an unresolved emotional wound. So the world becomes a mirror. And as we heal unresolved emotional wounds, we have the opportunity to explore opportunities, explore ourselves, explore worlds within worlds. Using technology to objectively track key metrics provides a feedback loop, moving from disease management, which is like the current healthcare system, treating a lot of disease after it's become chronic, to a now wellness system where in real time we're able to adapt behaviors and habits to support wellness and longevity. And the thing is that we talked about is like just having the data doesn't change behavior, and it doesn't necessarily support our well-being. We've got our data telling us that we're sleeping terribly, or we're not meditating. So having that support structure and having effective expert information to help you course correct, change behaviors, provide accountability, motivation, community is really important for overcoming blocks, and really working towards expressing that seeded potential that we all have within, so that we can feel whole, fearless as we move into this new world. I feel like this period over the next 20 years is the most exciting time to be on the planet ever. It's like, wow, it's really excited. I'm really excited for it, but obviously there's the importance to do it right with technology. And I love what technology can offer, because for millions of years we've used tools and technologies to extend our abilities, from the moment we used a stick to get at fruit on a branch outside our reach millions of years ago. And so technology is not the enemy. It's technology is an extension of the level of consciousness that creates it. And so it's most important now to help people to wake up, to elevate our consciousness, to know ourselves as that wholeness, so that we use this technology in ways that we can't even imagine now. And wow, like that's what I want to be a part of. And in that, being fearless and live with meaning and purpose. And so for me, like I've put together a program. I'm not going to do a big pitch on this program. What I want to do is catch up with you all individually. I've got to showcase what I've been working on, what we've been working on with I Am Connected, to see like what resonates with you. Like, how would you like to be involved? What do you need? What are your wants? And so that's like an individual one-on-one call, human to human, say, hey, can we play together? How do you want to play? But I will share just a quick overview of the Becoming Exponential program, just so you know. I love it. I think it's amazing. I've had now dozens and dozens, like I'd say close to 30 or so people go through it. And it's just a way that I've learned to use the platform as well. And so it is based on this model that I've kind of been poking around. It's capacity building, it's pattern breaking, and it's paradigm shifting. And really, it's like a rites of passage, embedding meditation optimizing sleep and recovery, breaking patterns, working on forgiveness so that we don't have to be lost in the story, expanding our beliefs. Our beliefs are what we want them to be. In short, is a summary of beliefs. They're loosely based on fact. Facts change all the time. Most often that fact is a result of the opinions of our caregivers throughout adolescence. And so really, what I learned is that beliefs are what we want them to be. And so it's like, what code do we want to be running? And how do we remove the code that's not working and install the ones that we do want? And then how does that show up? In this three-dimensional reality is our habits. And so ultimately it's working towards helping to connect us to that sense of I am. That's the ultimate goal through the program, is to have that full felt sense of connection to self. And part of that is healing, learning how to relate to the moment. And then also, what is that seed of potential that wants to come through you? And so we do that over 12 weeks. We go deep, do a deep dive. It's kind of like, as in a group format, we do a lecture. It's kind of like, I don't want to say lecture, we share content on each of these 6 modules. And then the subsequent week, there's a doing, like this is the homework around that. And then there's the following week is we talk about it. We really ingrain it. It's like lecture tutorial in the same way that a university would do it over 12 weeks. In addition to that, infused through that, so there's the modules, do weekly group meditations, and support for those that haven't got a meditation practice, an opportunity to share for those that do and want to share with others. Daily accountability and support through the daily log. I love the log because it's really an introspective, letting somebody on the inside, but it's also having daily touch points. It helps to really shape how we relate. Like what I see a lot is people, I feel, when somebody did this, I feel this. It's like, well, when somebody did that, there's a part of you that felt that. And so it's really then, again, shifting the person into I am. The regular correction of language really helps with moving that. Weekly contraction release sessions. Thank you so much again, Michelle, yesterday for your willingness to have the vulnerability and courage to share with us. But we do that each week. And part of really what I want to develop also is a network of people that are able to do that, to release contractions for each other, because we all have a multitude of different, and as we pay more attention to it, we see how extensive our contractions are. And so let's build a network of those people that can actually, hey, Michelle, I've just contracted around this. Can you help me move it? As opposed to needing to rely on a psychotherapist, because I feel like we can do a lot of this work ourselves when we get to a certain point. Or a ring, so I think that's important for measuring and providing that feedback loop. Muse neurofeedback device, these are optional. If you've got a Fitbit, let's just use your Fitbit. If you accomplish a meditation, we don't need a Muse, but we can. It's great to help start and build a relationship with, if I do this with my breath, it affects my neurology like this. And neurofeedback provides an auditory sound so you can sort of regulate your state. Lifetime access to the platform, getting involved in the platform as well. It's like, my ultimate vision would be the platform would become a DAO at some point, and the people that are contributing to it would have ownership over it. But that's I need more people involved to help that vision come to light. 12-month access to Positive Prime. And so that's like the Becoming Exponential program. We go deep into that and have had tremendous results with people. I got happy to provide names so you can get verbal testimonials if that's of interest to anybody watching this. But like I said, I really want to meet you with where you're at and what you want. So I'd love to jump on a one-on-one call with you and say, all right, well, is there a way that we can play together out of all the things that you've seen over the last 5 days? If it's the Becoming Exponential program, great. I'm happy to talk more about that. If not, it's like, let's co-create something together. So the intention was to do a meditation, now to observe the mind. I'm also aware that I have gone 4 minutes over. So I just want to tune in, like, does anybody have any questions? Do you want to meditate? I wouldn't normally go meditate now anyway, so I'm happy to hang on the line and meditate, but I understand you may have to go about your day. These meditations are available in the platform as well under that Becoming Exponential meditation program. I'll reach out to you all individually to set up a one-on-one. For the VIPs, also I'm going to reach out to you individually. Given Michelle, you're the only VIP that's been showing up. I was planning a special VIP session, but I'll just catch up with you individually, and I'll reach out to the other VIPs as well. Yeah.
I think it'd be nice to do meditation.
Yeah, nice.
I can hang around for meditation too.
Cool. How long would you like to go for?
10 minutes.
Yeah, it suits me.
Yeah, cool. All right. So let's do that. What I'll do is I might just run us through at an accelerated rate, releasing tension, releasing emotion, right breathing. And these are profound meditations individually, but we'll stack them together and then we'll finish with observing the mind. And so that single pointed focus is where like the others can be just preludes to really getting to that point where we're able to sit and hold our attention, be outside the mind. So the invitation is to close down your eyes. And we're just going to tune into the body. Previously, we tensed up and then we scanned the body and then we did melting chocolate. But here we'll just bring our attention to the muscles around our eyes. And we're just going to, from there, scan down the body and just release, relax, let go. Just consciously let go as you move down through the body. Becoming aware of any tension points and just moving and just allowing the body to release, relax, let go. And then from there, let's just tune in to the energy that's alive in the moment. If there's any peak emotions. And then we label it and feel it. This can be really important if you had a busy day. It can be hard to hold your attention still if you've got big unresolved emotions sitting below the surface. And so we just meet it and feel it. Let's do it one more time, just connecting into this moment. What are we feeling now? Just label it and then allow it. And if in your practice you find the mind looping around it, then that's a contraction worth noting. And at another time, it's something that could be processed. For now, let's then now shift our attention to our breath. And so breathing ideally in through the nose, breathing down deep into our lower section, so our tummy, middle section, the ribs, and the upper section, the chest. And then pause for a moment before contracting from the tummy, the ribs, and the chest. Ideally in and out through the nose. Catching the next inhalation, breathing down deep in. And all the way up into the chest expands. So we're building a slow rhythmic breath. Pausing and then contracting from the lower section, middle section, and upper section. Catching the next inhalation and put a time on it. It's 4 seconds in, 1 second pause, 4 seconds out, 1 second pause. I'm going to leave you just for a moment to tune into that breath and that timing. Doing your best to feel the physical feeling of that air moving right down into the tummy, the ribs, and the chest. So it's like a wave-like motion. And then when you contract, we contract from the tummy first, and the ribs drop and the chest drops. 4 in, 1 pause, 4 out, 1 pause. This begins influencing our biology as well, influencing our autonomic system, shifting us from busy, sympathetic, mind-dominated state into a parasympathetic, more alpha theta state. And so we keep that slow rhythmic breath happening in the background. And we have like a small portion of our attention just focused on our posture and any tension that arises. And if a tension arises, you just take your attention into it and release it. And so with that and that slow rhythmic breath, we now shift our attention to a single point. And whether we use a mantra, which is a word or a phrase that you repeat over and over, or I find myself being drawn to a particular chakra. Often it's my chest, at other times it's my third eye. And I hold my attention there. And so it's a choice. It's a choice to make once in each sitting, and then just focus on that. We want to resist changing, because then that's just the mind activity changing. So whether it's a word or a phrase, choose. Whether it's a focal point like a chakra, choose. And from now, we hold our attention on that, keeping that slow rhythmic breath in the background. If your attention wanders, you just gently bring it back. Reset, refocus, being gentle with yourself. Holding your attention. giving your full attention to your focus. Your attention wanders, you just gently bring it back. Reset, refocus. And as you hold your attention for longer and longer, you begin observing the mind and the thoughts that it'll conjure and the stories that it'll create, trying to take your attention away. The more disciplined we become at holding our attention still, begin to see it, not be in it. And then there comes a point where you can see it and you're outside it. And at that point, we truly begin meditating. It's like we get meditated. We're in it. And so this is the intention within my practice. Observe the mind and not be in the mind. So we hold our attention on our focal point. And often, as we start out, we can find ourselves pendulating into thought and then realizing, and then we gently bring it back, and then we pendulate into thought and then we gently bring it back. That in itself is a beautiful practice, beautiful habit to develop as you move about your day in the waking state. You'll catch yourself consumed by the mind and realize, oh wow, it was just in the mind and now I'm not. And that may bring a little smile. So don't become frustrated if you're doing your seated practice and you find yourself in the mind. You catch yourself. It's an opportunity to smile, reset, refocus. Give your full attention to your focal point. I had a mentor once tell me, if you sit long enough, the mind will always give up. And I've found that to be true. Some days it can happen in 10 minutes, some days it takes an hour, sometimes longer. Thank you all for your energy and your contribution over the last 5 days. I appreciate you very much. And I appreciate you allowing me to share, and I'm excited to have conversations with you all individually. For now, we tell ourselves we're about to complete. Stretching out into the fingers and toes, arms and legs. Moving slowly so as not to spill the calm that you've created. I hope you have an amazing day. And we'll tune in soon. Any questions, Michelle, Steve, before we wrap for today?
All good. Thanks, Troy. It's been great.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you very much for the week. It's been wonderful.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate you both, your energy and contribution. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to continue to catch up and yeah, have conversations around how we might play together. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, much love.
See you, Troy.